What is happening, everyone? It's GBall, and I have two knives here to share with you coming in from Kizer that we're going to be doing a reevaluation on: the little ring bow and the microbe, two extremely popular designs, and we'll get into why it's a reevaluation. Before we do that, if this is your first time stopping by, welcome to GBall Vision. Drop a comment below. Let me know what that EDC is looking like today. So the microbe and little ring bow, very popular models from Kizer. And because I'm able to handle these knives a couple weeks before they are released, I was able to help them catch an issue during production with both of these knives that they have told me they have been able to fix. And that is what we are here to see today. I still have both the old examples of the microbe and the little ring bow that I attempted to fix multiple times on both of them. And although I was able to help them out a little bit, I was not able to help them completely, either of them. And I gotta say, that's kind of sad because I've been able to fix about 10 or 12 knives by sanding the lock face down lightly, not grinding it, but just, sanding it down a little bit. And what I have found over the years that is a huge cause for lock failures is the fact that a lot of knives will have either coated liners or a coated blade or both. And that's when you can get real issues because there's overspray. There should not be any coating on the tang or the lock face. That is something that should be taken care of before it leaves the factory. But just in case that it doesn't, it's something to be very mindful of. And oftentimes, there's a big chance that you can fix it that way because that's probably what it is. A lot of these companies are able to get the tolerances very nice, and that's what you need. You need nice, tight tolerances for these locking mechanisms to be successful, and you don't want any coatings anywhere on those lock faces or those surfaces. The cleaner they are, the better lockup is going to be. So if you do attempt to sand a lock face down or the tang of your blade, make sure you clean it up and whatnot afterwards, because debris and oil is also a thing that will make a lock fail. And if you have all three of those together, say it's coated, uncoated, you have some oil and debris in there or just some oil from the factory, it could wreak havoc and make them fail extremely easy. And that is what we have here with both of these knives, the fact that they are failing very easily. You can see with like a lighter tap, this one's good to go, but a locking knife should be able to withstand a lot more than that right there. As you can see, I'm going to give this a great open. It's locked up, no question about it. But if we give it just a little more than a tap, it fails. It has tremendous issue. And like I said, I've tried to take this particular one apart 3 times. I think the microbe twice. And the microbe I got pretty good, but it still is going to fail under certain circumstances. But you can see there with the ring bow, that's a pretty big issue. I think even someone who thinks this test is stupid, if you don't have enough brains in your head to want a locking folding knife to be able to stay locked up, whether this is a valid test or whether this is valid, or we're not out there trying to use the spine to cut anything, we're not trying to hammer anything, but there are things that happen that are accidents, something that just can't be explained. That's an accident, right? It's happened to me a couple of different times where the lock has failed. One, because I came back up real quick and hit another material that was really hard, and it actually closed. Luckily on my glove, my glove was pinched in there, and it was able to save my finger from getting cut up. And then another time I was in material and I went to come back out of the cut and I was in some dense thermoply board. And when I came back up, the knife disengaged and I almost got it again. So it's happened to me twice, and I know dozens of other people that an accident like that has happened, and none of the stories are the same, but they all have the same outcome where the knife failed, and it's something they started to pay attention to. So just because it doesn't happen to you, it hasn't happened to you, doesn't mean that it won't happen. That's like saying, well, I haven't been in a car accident, I don't know why you were in one. That's the type of thing you're saying, that acting like car accidents don't happen. Lock failure does happen, and there was a point where it was a tremendous issue a couple years ago, before I came onto the scene, really. And when I came into the scene, and it's something I made a stink about back then, was, I liked the action being nice and smooth and drop shut, what everyone was all hyped about back then. But I was like, I want the damn thing to stay locked up almost more than anything. Like, I'll take some lackadaisical action if you can give me a good solid lockup. So that was kind of my whole premise. And we have found that with lots of testing, you can have very smooth, clean action, hydraulic action, whatever type of action you want, and still have a great lockup, a solid lockup. It's been proven many, many times, and it doesn't matter what the locking mechanism is. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut right to the good stuff, really. I showed you that both these knives are having issue, and I just pulled these out of the box. I have not tested them yet. I have no idea, but Kizer is saying both of these knives are now good to go. I believe, though, at the time of recording this, I've seen at least one other model of theirs having an issue here and there. And like I said, I don't think with any of these it's widespread. I think it's just with certain ones this has happened to, but it's something they have identified now, and it's hopefully something they can prevent going on in the future. Maybe not completely, but for the most part. Hey guys, before we check these locks, if you're enjoying this video, you like knives and gear, double check and make sure you're subscribed here to the channel. If you're not familiar, we're going to bring out the spine whacker. Many years of abuse, whether it's a folder, an OTF, an auto, we introduce it to the spine whacker. The only thing that doesn't get introduced to the spine whacker, the only things are slip joints, because they don't have a lock, right? Fixed blades usually don't meet the spine whacker. Maybe once in a while we'll do like a tip test, but usually that's an outdoor thing. And then the only other time we do not test a knife is if it's not my knife. If somebody loaned it in or sent it in or something like that, then of course, unless they give me permission to do it, then it's not something I am testing. But just to give you an idea, I release 7 to 14 videos a week. And, maybe not every single one of those is a new knife unboxing, but, let's just say 5 to 7 of them are, and sometimes more. So I'm, checking out at least 7 a week that you see. And the changes I have seen have been tremendously good. A lot of companies are starting to do really good when it comes to having a good lockup. And what I was getting at is I test a lot of knives, a ton of them, and I run them through the same routine, knife in and knife out. No knife is any different than anything else. I run them through the same process, the same intricate, quick process that every knife, when I unbox it, goes through, and it's not going to change anytime soon. But what we are going to skip today is the real intricate parts of these knives, because you can always go back to the unboxing I did on both of these and get all the specs and the behind the edge and the blade stock thickness, the handle thickness. I cover all of that stuff in the unboxings from tip to butt. I cover the knife in the unboxing. That way, if it's something you're interested in, you don't got to wait for, you don't got to try to guess from looking online at what some of the specs are, and you can see how it cuts, how it handles up against some adversity, that type of thing. That way you know what you're looking at and how it's going to act out of the box. We're going to start off with the microbe. The compression lock like this here with the stop pin, this is a very strong tough lock. We'll give this a couple of tugs here, up and down and side to side. I don't feel anything. And as I always say, even if there's a tiny bit of movement one way, it's not something to be overly concerned about. Now, if it's crazy movement, then of course you might have a little issue. But if there's like just a touch, and I'm saying, you know, like 100,000ths of a movement in there or something, like where it just gives you a little bit of wiggle, I have figured that that's not a cause for concern whatsoever. Now, if that's something that bothers you, then of course, reach out to that company. But it's not something I have found to be an issue as far as the lockup is concerned. So this one feels really good. And so does this one, for instance, by the way. This one feels really good. No movement in any direction. But if we introduce it to the spine whacker, and that's what I was getting at before, or that's what I was getting at earlier, is I've been able to make this better, but it's still ultimately, didn't close it. Sorry about that. I like to close them in between, but if this one is meeting just like light taps, it's usually okay. But if it gets a quick jolt up here, it usually fails. Now, not always though, and that's what I was getting at. I have helped this one get better. And, you know, to the person who's saying, you know, if you're testing this and it fails, that is catastrophically, you know, disfiguring the knife. I don't really buy that. I've had coated ones where I've actually done that test. Now, I think repeated abuse of doing that for sure. But I've had coated liners and coated blades where I've ran this test and then pulled the knife apart to see what kind of damage is being done to the tang or to the lock face. And not that I went into it with a microscope and looked at like the fibers of everything, but there was little to no damage, like a little bit of marring on the coating, right? That was about the extent of it under maybe 5 to 7 taps. So I don't really buy that. If you really smash it, maybe you could, you know, we are talking about steel on steel here. That is heat treated. So it's not like the shit is just crumbling in there. But so that's something, you know, to keep in mind. And I'm not recommending everyone go out there and do this neither. But if it is something you're concerned with, it is something I would do, you know, right out of the box and do it safely. But you can see with the microbe here, 9 times out of 10, this one is pretty good. Like I said, it took 2 tries of pulling it apart though. And it finally started to lock up pretty good. But here's even more, you know, proof that just because, and I failed this one probably 24 times testing it out and trying to figure it out, right? And it still has a great lockup. So, you know, the disfigurement of the lock face and stuff like that, the people saying that, you know, is there some truth to it? Yeah, maybe a little, but, you know, I don't know about all that. Is this the one that is new? I think that's the new one. That is definitely the new one. Yeah. So I accidentally picked up the new one and we already tested it. So we just tested it then. But there you can see the old one. And there's no movement in there neither. I usually will give it single taps that are pretty light. And then I'll give it 1 double tap just to put it past what it should be able to hold up to. You know what I mean? The double tap isn't necessary. It's not necessary, right? But I don't have a problem with someone testing them that way because, you know, that's how I tested them for a long time, was a double tap. So, you know, I have only recently started to make it a decision to close them in between each test. And I think that's the way to go about it fairly for the knife's sake. But you can see, even being very fair with this, it still has issues. So let's get this one out and run it back through the test. A light tap out towards the tip. Sounds good. actually feels better. Light tap in the middle. Same test we do every video. So this one feels good. This one feels good. Sounds good. And, you know, I got a sample size of 2 here. So, you know, this is all, take it all with, you know, a grain of salt. Just, I got one that failed. They sent a new batch in, and this one is passing right now. And I'm going to keep on it because I don't think, I think with the one I didn't find out till after the video was over. So we have the new microbe here with the thumb studs. We saw the old one fail. We'll give this a light tap out towards the tip, close it and check it. Give it a good shot there in the middle. Close it and check it. That was a good shot. Close it and check it. And if you are going to test your blades, please keep your fingers out of the pathway of the closing blade. That way, if it does snap back, it don't cut the hell out of you. Just, you know, some words of wisdom there. This one feels good as well. Let's give it a double tap and we'll call it a day on these. So it seems like these have both been fixed. So that is good news. And I'm glad, you know, it's awesome that Kizer is transparent with everything, because the simple fact of the matter is, guys and gals, everyone, no matter what company it is going to have an issue here and there with something along the way. That's the way that it goes. I have had smaller batch USA made stuff that has had issues on more than one occasion. So it's not like foreign knives or Chinese knives, they're the only knives having trouble. That's not the case at all. Like I said, I've had very expensive knives come with dull edges, come with detent lash, come with lock rock, come with, you know, I have had my fair share of issues with US made, European made, you know, you name it. There's been issues with varying companies and varying knives. So it's about how the company responds to the issue at hand. Are they upfront, transparent? Yeah, we've had some issues with these knives. If you have trouble, send it in, let us know, whatever. You know, we'll take care of you and we're going to fix the problem. And that is how Kizer is treating this here. So you got to really tip your cap to them, pat them on the back. You know, they do a great job at keeping everyone informed, being upfront about things, and then taking care of things on the back end if you have any type of issues. That'll wrap this one up, ladies and gentlemen. You'll have to let me know, what do you think of this whole ordeal with the locking mechanisms? And let me know what you think of the microbe, the little ring bow. Do you like the thumb studs or you prefer the cutout? Do you have either of these knives? Have either of them given you issues? If you do have them, all that type of stuff, I want to know and look forward to hearing from you down in the comments. Hit that thumbs up button for me. It helps push the video out there to more people. And if you want to be sure to see more daily dope knife and EDC content just like this, make sure you're subscribed here to the channel. Ring that bell. I'll pop up a couple of new videos you haven't seen yet. Go check one of them out. Have yourself an awesome day. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.